Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a really fascinating philosophical essay by Xu Feng titled How to Use Free Will. Now, this text tackles a giant paradox. If free will is this amazing gift, why in the world does it cause us so much stress and pain? We're going to break down the author's unique take on how our everyday choices interact with what he calls the universe's ultimate script. It's a real mind-bender, so let's get into it. Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the reality of free will, see exactly when it starts causing us pain, and then explore this fascinating concept of no self. After that, we'll look at the dangers of stubbornness, the idea of embracing the one, and wrap up with how to actually use our free will wisely.
All right, part one, the reality of free will.
The text opens by hitting us with that classic, age-old question, do we actually even have free will? But rather than getting bogged down in abstract academic theories, Xu Feng points straight to our everyday consciousness. The simple fact that you think, that you weigh the pros and cons of a situation, that you try to figure out how to get the good stuff and avoid the bad, all of that, according to the text, is absolutely undeniable proof that free will is real.
Think about it like this. Imagine walking into a massive, dazzling mall, and the author actually uses this as an example, watching one of those television blind date programs. The moment you start picking one item over another or judging who's a good match, boom, you are fully expressing your free will. According to Xu Feng, if we didn't have this ability, we'd literally just be biological robots. The whole concept of making a choice just wouldn't exist.
So that brings us to section 2, when free will causes pain.
Okay, so if free will is this incredible superpower, why on earth are we always so stressed out? Well, the author argues that our human suffering, the troubles, the anxiety, the worry, the fear, it all pops up specifically when our personal free will clashes with the universe's pre-written script. The text suggests there's this grand universal program known as the Tao. And when our own little desires push back against the storyline or the character arrangements laid out by this higher order, friction, pure friction. And we feel that friction as deep psychological pain.
To really ground this, the text uses a specific spiritual community mentioned in the text, the Lifechanyuan Celestials, as an example. Picture a follower in this community who gets an instruction from their guide. Now, deep down, they might secretly resist it, right? Maybe they think, you know what, my way is better. The guide is wrong. But they don't want to openly resist because they genuinely do want to follow the path. What happens? A massive internal tug-of-war. They can't fully surrender their own will, and it just leads to massive internal confusion. It is honestly the perfect microcosm for what happens when our individual desires fight the larger script of our lives.
Which leads us perfectly into section 3, the power of no self. Now, to fix this incredibly common modern feeling anxiety, the text brings in a pretty radical ancient solution. It points to the Buddhist state of no self. According to Xu Feng, a person in this state essentially has zero free will. Why? Because to be the Buddha means there is no personal self left to fight for. But wait, this doesn't mean you just turn into a lifeless zombie. Actually, it's about willingly, joyfully, and happily aligning your free will 100% with the laws of heaven and the program of the Tao. It's playing your role in the script completely naturally, with total harmony.
But moving to section 4, the danger of stubbornness.
What exactly happens when we just refuse to let go of ourself and demand our own way? The author calls stubbornness an extreme manifestation of free will. You know the type. The universal script gently nudges you to go east, and you absolutely insist on going west. It asks you to play, and you stubbornly insist on working. It asks you to be still, and you just have to move. By constantly doing the exact opposite of what the situation or higher script demands, you aren't finding freedom. Actually, the text argues, you're just turning up the dial on your own conflict and inviting suffering. The author absolutely nails this with a brilliant metaphor. He writes, if you choose to oppose, it is like an egg striking a rock, leaving yourself battered and bruised. Think about historical figures or even characters in TV dramas. The fiercely stubborn ones, the ones who relentlessly fight the current of their circumstances, they usually lead completely chaotic lives and meet pretty terrible ends. Trying to oppose the massive, unstoppable power of the universe's storyline with your tiny individual free will, well, it's a battle you literally cannot win. Okay, let's look at a solution in section 5, embracing the one. So, how do we avoid being that egg smashed against the rock? The text outlines a structural principle drawn from sage wisdom called embracing the one. And what that basically means is actively aligning yourself with the highest authority in whatever context you find yourself in order to get rid of that pesky attachment to the self. On a cosmic scale, the author says this means aligning with the greatest creator. In a country, it's aligning with the head of the government. In a small group, it's the leader. The fundamental rule here is to consciously curb your personal free will whenever it butts heads with a broader storyline.
Now, you might think this sounds incredibly restrictive, but the text promises the exact opposite. It's a path to liberation. Without embracing the one, every single step you take is a struggle, and disaster is basically inevitable. But when you strictly adhere to this principle, like following the Chanyuan values mentioned earlier, you get a massive reward. You stop fighting the guide's roadmap, and suddenly you experience ease, simplicity, profound joy, and true well-being. It is the ultimate paradox. Letting go of your need to control everything is literally what finally sets you free.
Finally, Section 6, Using Free Will Wisely.
This brings us to a crucial point that ties this whole philosophical journey together. Because after all this talk about curbing your will, you're probably thinking, wait, is the author saying free will is entirely bad? Absolutely not. The essay explicitly states that free will is a wonderful gift from the greatest creator. And hey, if you're given a gift, you should definitely use it. To ignore it would be entirely wrong. The catch is how we use it. We've got to use our free will to consciously choose to follow the guidance of higher wisdom. Think gods, Buddhas, celestial beings, and sages, instead of just blindly chasing our own random impulses.
Look, the universal script is just vastly too complex for our ordinary human eyes to comprehend. We simply cannot see the big picture. So, relying on our own tiny, limited, individual wisdom to figure out the truth of the universe, it's absurd. The text has a hilarious and memorable way of putting it. It's like climbing a tree to catch a fish. Thinking you can just brute force your way into heaven using your unguided free will is a total fool's errand. We have to use our free will to choose the guidance of those who actually have the map.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. We've seen how our choices can either be a source of agonizing friction or a tool for absolute, profound peace, all depending on whether we resist or flow with life's greater currents. So I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on today. Take a really close look at the friction in your own life right now. Are you using your free will to stubbornly strike the rock, or are you finally using it to gracefully align with the universal script? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring.